Well, I have a quiz for you. Let's see if you can pass this one. Some puppies are way out of control, and their behavior really has to be managed. You can't just live with it. You know, mouthing and nipping and, you know, just jumping up, and you got to do something about it, but you have to do the right thing, right? So here's the quiz. When he mouths and jumps on you, you should A, yell no, B, spray him with water, C, cry like a baby, D, seek professional help, or E, none of the above. I'll give you the answer. Well, how about right now? The answer is none of the above. I'll tell you exactly what to do and why it works. In case we haven't met, I'm veterinarian Dr. Jeff Nickel, along with my family pets. Miss America, here, sit up, girlfriend, and say hello to our friends. This is Miss America. She's our 12-year-old Border Collie, doing very nicely, quite active. And this is Tony. Can you see Tony? Here he is, right here. This is Tony, our 13-year-old cat. And this is Gaston. Gaston's about 4. He found us. We thought we were going to find him a home, and that's exactly what happened. He moved in with us. So, yes. So I've been in practice for a long time. Oh, Cindy, wonderful. Thank you for coming. I hope you find this helpful. I'm residency trained in veterinary behavior medicine, but I've had many, many years in general practice. And so, frankly, I'm pretty good at putting it all together. But tonight we're not going to talk about things other than the brain. No other physical issues are going to influence what we're going to discuss here with puppies, although this information can be applied to dogs of any age. And in fact, in many respects, you can apply it to cats too, although they're different still. And kind of the thrust of what I'm talking about here is that cats and dogs and humans, well, they're all 3 different species. And people, I mean, do the best we can, and people tend to apply human behavior solutions to members of a different species. And with dogs in particular, they are very much like us. Their social structures are so similar, and that's why they're man's and women's best friend. Well, not that cats aren't, but they have some important differences. And if we don't recognize those and allow for them, and you know, just have a little empathy for creatures that aren't the same as we are, well, we can make a big difference by catching on to who they are and what the differences are, and be a canine leader for our dogs starting when they're babies. So if you think that this would be helpful to friends or family members who have a puppy, or a dog of any size who acts like a baby, well, by all means tag them and invite them to join us right now and ask their questions. Just type it in on the comment line. You can interrupt me anytime, and your questions don't have to be about jumping and nipping and mouthing puppies. It can be about anything pet related. And I have some other folks who are visiting. Jana, excellent. Thank you for coming. And Jane, thank you for tuning in as well. I'm delighted to have you. So tag your friends with this thing if you want to. And if you find the information I'm about to share to be helpful, please hit the heart button just so I know I'm being valuable. And if you can hear me loud and clear, hit the wow button just so that I know that you can hear my voice and you can see what the heck we're doing. So I want to start with a story about 2 12-week-old puppies, Lhasa Apsos, very cute little dogs. And these folks adopted them as litter mates. Thank you. It's already valuable. I appreciate the hearts. And these were very sweet puppies and really active. And you'll hear people advise against adopting brothers or sisters. I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea at all. Just make sure that you understand that they're like children. When you have 1 puppy, you have 1 puppy. But if you have 2, you have actually more like 4. And if you were to really get out of control and get 3, it'd be like having 9. So don't do that. And if you're prepared to try to manage 4 puppies, then go ahead and get 2 and good luck. So anyway, they had these 2 puppies, Bonnie and Clyde, who played really actively together, mouthing each other and wrestling and tumbling and growling and barking and acting like they were ripping each other's throats out. And of course, they were just playing like normal puppies. And their people were a little bit concerned about that. And they did the smart thing by shooting a video and bringing that along to the consultation. And it was very clear that it was just normal puppy behavior. Which, by the way, you are always welcome to ask me a question on Facebook or type it in during the Facebook Live on the comment line. But if you want to send me a video of what your dog or cat is doing, I can really make a difference for you, and that really can share the information with other people who might have something similar going on at home. So here we got Bonnie and Clyde, and one of the other problems, well, their rough play with each other wasn't a problem, but one of the real problems was that when they were playing with their people, they also got pretty rambunctious and were nipping and mouthing. And with older people, like these folks who had Bonnie and Clyde, old enough to remember the movie anyway, they were getting wounds on their hands and on their arms. And you know, when you get a little bit older, the skin gets thin, and this is not a good thing. So we needed to do something about this. And the tendency for most is to say to the puppy, stop doing that. Or I've known some people who've been advised, well-intentioned, but a mistake, is to hit the dog on the nose. And when you get physical like that or scare the dog with reprimands, you can damage the bond. You can reduce your new dog's trust in you, or even if you've had the dog for years, you diminish the relationship. So here's what we told these folks with Bonnie and Clyde. Miss America, here, I've got this leash on your collar. Would you show people your leash? Oh, you silly girl, you're resting. Okay, she's resting. Here's, I want to wake you up. Here, we've got this leash here, just your average leash. It's 6 feet long. And when you have a puppy who may need to be managed, you be proactive. And you leave a leash attached to the dog's collar of whatever age the dog. And the dog drags it around the house. And you get used to it. Shouldn't be a tripping hazard if you know what to look for. It's just being dragged around the house. And so when you see a behavior you don't want, you have to understand a fundamental difference between dogs and people, and that is that they do not believe that they have any entitlement to a response from their human leader. Now that just doesn't sound like it makes sense, does it? We love them like they were little people in furry suits, and that's a good thing for everybody. But the real difference is that unlike children or maybe a subordinate in the workplace or anybody who's in a hierarchical relationship with us, even someone lower status or lower ranking, they have a right to a response when they ask a question, don't they? But dogs actually don't believe they do. And if you're going to give a dog canine-specific leadership that they innately understand, that they can recognize immediately and take security in getting it, you need to treat them like a dog and be a good, educated canine leader. And the essence of that is to say, look, my dog can have all of the interaction and play and love and affection that I want her to have. It's always on my terms because I'm the leader, but that dog has to earn it. That doesn't mean that you seldom interact or play with your dog or kiss or hug him. You do it as much as you want, but the dog needs to show good behavior before it can earn that response from the leader. And the reason that that's so important is that dogs, when they get a response from their person, they are sure that the behavior that they were showing at that moment is being reinforced and that the leader wants more of it. So if you respond to a dog who's jumping and mouthing and biting you and all that stuff, the dog's takeaway is that that's what you want more of. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? They don't think the way we do in that context. When it comes to an interaction with a leader, they believe that if they got a response, it was because the leader wanted more of that behavior. So if you're seeing a behavior you want, don't even think about reprimanding, because doing that would ratchet up the dog's association of arousal with that sort of situation, that sort of behavior, that context. So if we see behavior we don't want, we certainly don't want a dog to think that it earned a response. So number one, the first thing you do when you see inappropriate behavior, jumping, mouthing, biting, all that nonsense, you completely ignore. But if you were proactive and you have the leash, Miss America, honey, would you sit up, please, so people can see? Oh, that's very good. That's perfect. Okay, we have the leash attached to her collar. And, the dog's dragging it around the house. And so, first thing, ignore. Always step one immediately. And then you step on the leash. And the reason you do that, well, you could just make a diving catch for it if the dog is, running around, and you'd be like an outfielder hoping to grab it. And then you're chasing the leash, and the dog thinks you're playing a game. So if you see behavior you don't want, step one, ignore. And then step two, step on the leash. And that way it doesn't get away from you. Then you pick it up and turn on your heel, and believing in every bit of your brain that there is no one on the other end because you're a total ignorer, you take that leash and you create distance from whatever the context was. Now, if you're sitting and your dog is mouthing and getting out of control, you could ignore and simply stand up and walk away. But if you have the drag line, the leash that the dog's dragging around, you can lead it to another part of your house, round a corner, and just stand there for another 5 or 10 seconds, completely ignoring. And what's going on, if you had a dog, but because you're an Olympic level ignorer, your dog looks at you and says, "Oh my goodness, we've lost the relationship," that's a pretty serious consequence. And then you steal a quick glance at your puppy and go, softer body posture, a little bit of calming, and you say, "Good girl, Miss America," very quietly. And then you give your puppy another opportunity to enjoy an interaction with you. So the puppy's takeaway is, I get out of control and I lose my interaction with my leader, the last thing they want. And then when they show calming behavior, they've just earned it back. You never miss an opportunity to reinforce behavior that you want. And we want calm behavior. So even if you're just walking through the room and you're busy and you steal a glance at your dog as you walk by and she's behaving well, you say, "Good dog." And with enough repetition, you catch him doing something right, just like the parenting books or the leadership books in business. Catch them doing something right. That works for dogs and for people. And they say, every time I'm seen being calm and well-behaved, I'm going to earn more of that because I keep getting reinforced for it. But when I lose control and mouth and nip and jump and bite clothes and arms and hands, I lose, my leader walks away, and the interaction immediately comes to an end. Well, I don't want that. Now, there's many ways that you can, well, let me back up. So Bonnie and Clyde, their people did this. They followed these instructions to the letter, and those two little puppies were no longer criminals. They turned out great. The truth is they didn't have a behavior disorder. All they needed was healthy canine-specific management. So this can be really gratifying, but you just have to be consistent. And again, just like, reading parenting books, they tell you, try to carry it off the same way every time. And you set the children or the dogs or the puppies, they've set them up for success because they know what to expect. Okay, so this is a behavioral principle called differential reinforcement. Now, lead dogs in free-living canine social groups, groups of feral dogs, for example, nobody has to teach them how to do this. It's genetically programmed into their little canine brains. And it is into the brains of our domestic pets, too. Just because a dog is well socialized and lives in our homes with us doesn't mean that they don't retain all of those normal, innate behaviors that would make it simple for them to survive in the wild. So when we do observational research of free-living canine social groups, we see the lead dogs largely manage their subordinates by ignoring inappropriate behaviors and allowing privileges to the dogs who show the right behaviors. And those privileges are actually earned resources. And it isn't just interactions with the leader. It's opportunities to eat, opportunities to leave the territory. So with your own dog, if the dog wants to go outside, come back inside, go for a leash walk, get in the car, get pets, get play. Those are all privileges from your dog's perspective. The dog doesn't think that they're rights. They see them as earned privileges. And you can require your dog to earn every single one of them. And the dog goes, "I see what you're doing. That's canine leadership. I get it." And you set your dog up for a secure life because they already understand those things. So instead of trying to teach our dogs to speak human, which, we mistakenly do that because, they don't really understand the human stuff. Let me tell you a little bit about this guy right here. This was my wonderful Airedale. I named him Juan Gomez. I named him for a veterinary radiologist who I admired. And he was such an excellent dog. he was man's best friend, I'll tell you what, before I met my wife and raised my family. And I wasn't real clear when I got him, and it wasn't even in my head that I was going to be raising children someday and have a family. But throughout my 13 years with him, it started to germinate in my brain that maybe that was part of the reason that I was here. I know we're not all cut out to be parents, and I didn't think I was. But it became clear to me that actually that was the direction that my life was going. And I found that as a young man, when I made mistakes, he forgave me. Well, I still make mistakes. And I realized that pets always forgive. They always give us a second chance. And in fact, they do this in ways that most humans are just a little bit too frail and flawed to be able to do. But it's a good direction to take, and I've come to learn that our pets can set a mighty good example. And I've gotten to the point in my life where I actually learn a lot from my cats and dogs, because yeah, they make mistakes too. And as much as I'm probably a more together person than I was a while back in my earlier years, there's still gaps in my maturity. There are still things that I need to learn, and I get a lot of those lessons from my pets. And I think we can all do that. But we've got to, lay the foundation, because we are their leaders. And when we find that, when we give them consistency and kindness, and we're empathic toward the species differences between dogs and people, or cats and people, and we make allowances for that, and we say, look, you are the way you are, in part because you're different. We start to look at the other people that we meet and go, you're not identical to me either. You probably have different political views, and your brain thinks differently, and you've got different frailties and different shortcomings. And if I bring out your best because I treat you with kindness, well, I can learn that from my pets, and I can get reinforced by them. So I like to avoid reprimands, jerking on leashes, yelling. Those kinds of aversive punishments can hurt the heart. It's rough on the pets, and it's hard on us too. And the yeller can suffer more than the yellee sometimes, I think. So, and the final point, by the way, that I made to Bonnie and Clyde's folks, where it was that, exercise makes an enormous difference. We understand the physiologic reasons why dogs who get consistent exercise are better behaved in a general sense. They found that there is the neurotransmitter serotonin that is produced in the brain, but it's also produced in muscles. And when there is strenuous, consistent exercise every day, it benefits everybody. And dogs who get that kind of, particularly off territory, that is outside our yards, serious, just extended periods of time exercise, they tend to be more relaxed and less prone to inappropriate behaviors like nipping and mouthing and chewing on their people. And a leash walk is a wonderful thing. It's great exercise for a lot of us, and it's important for our dogs because they are out there picking up scents and pheromone signals, messages from other dogs that are secreted by these little tiny glands between the foot pads that secrete a pheromone-like substance called semiochemicals. Well, dogs have to have this. They have got to get out there and read those messages, and that's a really essential part of their social nature. But when we get back with most dogs from a leash walk, they look at us and go, oh, you might be good and tired. Well, I'm not, because for them, the exercise part, we've barely put a dent in it. So with puppies like Bonnie and Clyde, and frankly dogs of any age, unless they get elderly and they're really having a hard time getting around, then those dogs should be taken to a dog park, or playtime at doggy daycare, or maybe play dates and have friends over with their dog in your yard, or go to their house. But rough and tumble, racing around and all that heavy-duty play, or you can take your dog out in the yard or to the park and throw the ball. There's a wonderful product, by the way, called an iFetch. You can look it up online, and on their homepage they've got this video, and it's this device that you can use inside or outside for that matter, and it shoots out a ball, and the dog goes and grabs the ball and puts it back on the top of this, and the dog does not know how long the interval is before this thing's going to shoot out another ball. Maybe a few seconds, it may be several more than that, and it shoots it off in a different direction or in a different trajectory, so the dog has to watch and wait and oh, there it is, and it goes and gets it and brings it back and puts the dog puts the ball back on the top of the eye fetch and then watches and waits for it again. Things like that don't require any exertion on your part. But daily serious exercise makes an enormous difference. There's this old saying that a tired dog is a happy dog. Well, it's true, and we understand physiologically why. And it's especially important with dogs who have anxiety disorders, and it can reduce the need for medication, and it can make behavior modifications a whole lot more successful. So, you know, with puppies like Bonnie and Clyde, it was important for them to get those puppies out in, yeah, leash walks, but a whole lot of other strenuous exercise as well, whatever it takes. So, I hope you found this helpful. And if there are any questions that come up down the road, please send them to me on my Facebook page. I write a column in the Albuquerque Journal every week. It publishes on Friday. And those questions, I get them from Facebook from people. And it's not just behavioral questions. I have many years of experience, and I keep up with current developments in internal medicine and other specialty areas because they impact many of the behavior disorders that I treat. So you're welcome to ask me any question about lameness, diet, diarrhea, vomiting, coughing, you know, anything you want, cancers. Believe me, I'm versed in just about all of it, and if I'm not, I'll look it up and get answers. And you know, my column, it's not long, it's easy to read, and if you subscribe to my website, which is drjeffnichol.com, drjeffnichol.com, you can subscribe. It's no charge. And when you do, every Tuesday morning in your email inbox, you'll get my weekly media blog, which is my column from the Albuquerque Journal, and my Facebook Live video. So if you didn't catch it, you can see it on the following Tuesday morning. So I hope that's helpful to you. I do these things because it's really important to bring out the best in pets and their people because everybody benefits. I mean, pets are just wonderful. I mean, if you're watching this, I think you might probably agree with me. So thank you for tuning in. And, oh, Cindy, your foster dog is heartworm positive. All right, thanks for bringing that up. You know, it was just because heartworm preventative has been out there on a daily basis. Well, we used to have daily tablets. Now we have monthly tablets. Now there are monthly spot-on treatments even. These are tablets or a spot-on liquid. These things are very effective, but there are parts of the country where heartworm is, well, endemic, meaning that it's established, and in many situations a dog will get it if it's not on a reliable preventative. And heartworm is not always a major problem, but it sure can. In fact, it can kill. It can be horrible, causing coughing and damage to the lungs and the heart and other organs. So what's the best way to stay ahead of that? Of course, is the preventative. But in a dog with a routine blood test, which is important prior to starting the preventative, is the first thing I would do, Cindy, is take your dog in for chest x-rays, because it's a most reliable way of knowing what kind of damage, if any, has occurred to the heart and lungs, because treatment is going to be determined based on what's going on in the chest. And then treatment can be started, and nowadays the treatment is far safer than it once was, and we can eliminate these infections with very little, if any, risk in most cases. And they generally do very well, unless the dog is already really advanced with severe coughing. And we can still treat those, but they're much, much more difficult. But I would not back burner that. I would get that case evaluated and get that dog fixed up for its new owner. And, oh, John, thank you. I have a question, but I'll wait because my puppy and kitten are going crazy in the snow. Well, now that sounds like vigorous, serious exercise to me. It's that's one of the most fun things about having pets, isn't it? Is just watching them run around, having a wonderful time, and wishing we had that kind of energy. So great. Thank you, John. And by all means, send me that question later, and I'll address it probably in the next day or two. I have a full schedule of appointments tomorrow, but I'll get it on the weekend, certainly by Monday. So thank you for sending it in. And thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I hope these are as valuable to you as they are to me. I think sharing this kind of information is great, and I have fun doing it. So thanks, and have a great weekend.